thanks so much for jumping in on our very first show. We probably should have been back last week. You know, there was lots of news and stuff going on, but we all need a break. So we took an extra week, and we wanted to certainly touch base on some of the things that have been happening over the time we've been away. And probably one of the biggest stories, if not the biggest story, is the hui that just happened. So I thought we talked about it pre-Christmas with you. And so I shouted out to the Māori Party, Te Pati Māori, to see if you guys wanted to come on and tell us all about it. So that's why we're here. So tell us about the weekend.
Yeah, so I think, so first of all, it was phenomenal. And second of all, it was phenomenal. So I could say third of all. Look, I think the biggest thing is, you know, when you're going through stuff and you think, is this just me? Like, is this about me? Is this, it's just us? Are our expectations too high? Are we, are we just, is world peace and a beautiful Aotearoa just like something that is becoming beyond reach? And I think, we also left the year thinking, okay, after we saw the first week when the new government came through and everything, we got a real insight into those who actually are like-minded. But, you also want to say, are we so like-minded that we would rise for it? Are we so offended by this anti-Māori government, this government full of coalition parties that are represented by shareholders who are profit makers versus advocates for positive change? And I think what we saw was the rising of a whole of thousands and tens of thousands who could physically mobilize at a time when everyone's home with kids' holidays, you broke after Christmas and all these sorts of things, knowing that at home were another 100 each, knowing around the corner that we've just had huge international media following this kaupapa. And what it did was actually say, no, we're right. I mean, we felt we were right. We knew we were right. But it's actually really great to be in masses of other who wakapapa across various sectors of life, varying ages, Māori and non-Māori, who actually detest the populist politicking that we're seeing trying to creep into Aotearoa, the textbook 101 that we're seeing played by the Trump tips.
But on that, populist politics normally implies it's popular. It doesn't seem very popular. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I love, because in a country that has scale and tons of population, they could probably pull this off. But there's such disgust at the things that are coming out that I think, we see a prime minister who doesn't have control of his coalition partners. We see language and traits, quite frightening traits of a soon-to-be deputy prime minister that's chucking off at apolitical, neutral government officials that are meant to be serving them. And we're sort of seeing, actually, so is this who you really are, fella, eh? So this is what you're really made of. And I think we're starting to, as we see things unravel, and because we're such a small island, and yet we can have extreme varying opinions, but basically nobody wants to live in this aggression, this violence, this revolting anti another culture, particularly Indigenous people. So I think our long answer is that it was a massive weekend of being in company that wasn't there to, sorry, Shane Jones, sorry, Uncle, it wasn't a bitch fest. It was actually a solution. Okay, we're right. Everybody wants to live in unity. We've got the best country in the world. We have to protect that. This is a moment of maturity and growth. And here are some of the solutions. Here are some of the networks. Here are some of the strategies. But most importantly, the biggest thing that we have to do in Aotearoa is stay united. And so I think it was fabulous. It was like a retreat of, like a miri, like a lift of motivation to be able to look after each other, but also the humility. Like, if we were really an ugly people, we could go be angry and push back. I mean, I don't know what it's like to be amongst people who can't stand us like this, to the point that they want to change a whole treaty. But what I did see was that no one was anti non-Māori back. No one was hateful or repeating how we're feeling so attacked. Everyone, 150% were all mindful of our role as tangata whenua to manaaki, those who live in our whenua, to be united. And I think that was beautiful as well. So it was massive. I wish everyone could have been there. It was massive.
Yeah, I was going to ask you as well. It sounds like you've already answered this, though. Obviously, 10,000 or whatever, big number of people there, but the support you got from around the country. I mean, lots of people. Twitter went, I gasp with stories from people saying they wanted to be there. Yeah, I've got some stories about that for the whānau tonight about Twitter. But yeah, so I wanted to know as well, two things about our hairless Prime Minister. Was it a slap in the face that he didn't show? That's part one of the same question. But part two was he said he wasn't going because it was not political. And I thought to myself, he either doesn't understand New Zealand politics or he's just lying because, of course, it was political. How do you address that? Was it a political weekend? Am I right in that? And was it a slap in the face that he didn't show?
Okay, I don't know his one-dimensional way of seeing politics. I mean, I don't understand a lot of where he comes from. I mean, National and this Prime Minister are the immediate reason why we're in this situation. They were so intentional on becoming the new government that they pimped themselves out and agreed for the rewriting of Te Tiriti, or the principles, which mean nothing, to actually get through to select committee stage. Why on earth would you wish this on your country? Why? And I guess so. What it says to me is that, and I've said this for a while, is that our Prime Minister doesn't know tangata whenua. He doesn't have enough relationships prior to this position. He's a first-term politician. He hasn't been involved in Aotearoa for a very long time. He lived offshore for a long time. And so he has made and agreed to something that has created this disharmony and this embarrassment, because, again, like I said, the amount of international media that are watching us and interviewing us and contacting us are shocked. They are shocked. To all countries in the world that you would imagine to be engrossed in this type of race relations issue is not Aotearoa, it's not New Zealand. It's the last country in the world you would have expected this from. So I guess my answer to the Prime Minister choosing not to come, because it didn't fit his small-minded view of politics, was a lost opportunity. But, again, it's not that he was missed, but I do think that he has growing 20% of a population who are Māori. I would fathom at least another 20-30% of the population are tangata tiriti. And I think he is going to be found wanting. He's got a soon-to-be Deputy Prime Minister who is showing his true cards. He can't work with Māori. He wants us changed. He can't work with government officials. He thinks they're all wrong. He thinks he's so right that he's the only one whose opinions matter and whose words on paper matter. That's a frightening prospect. Then you've got the other one at the moment. I don't even go there. But so I think the Prime Minister lost an opportunity to build relationships and to look at his tenure as being a long-term Prime Minister for all in Aotearoa. Yeah. I think it's going to be short at this rate.
Can you explain something to me? Because I like being the dumb one here. You can teach me and teach our audience as well. With that lovely leaked cabinet paper that came out on the Friday night before the Hui, giving us a bunch of information, it seems that one of the key points one of the key problem points, I'm sure there's many, but one of the key problem points is what ACT is proposing with this referendum is to make the treaty a document between Crown and all New Zealanders, whereas currently it's a document between Crown and Māori. Is that one of the key issues with this whole thing?
I think the key issue, I think that's a point. The key issue is that in stating that Te Tiriti, and again, he's choosing the version that had 50 rangatira signed versus Te Tiriti, which had 500 rangatira signed. He is suggesting a couple of things. That Māori ceded sovereignty, and by that, we therefore have no rights to expect to be self-determining. And And that's where his one rule for all, one race for all. And I guess I said this at my last speech in the House before he rose for Christmas, is that we have a politician who belongs to a party of shareholders. So he's either doing this because he's extremely incompetent and believes that his version is right, or he's extremely corrupt and he's protecting the shareholders who stand to lose the most if Indigenous peoples and indeed if Māori are at the table and the power base shifts ever so slightly. And so I think those are some of the things, is that what we're seeing is a politician who's protecting the best interests of his shareholders that make up ACT.
Yeah.
And
we've
that's seen
really
some of the
interesting way to look at it.
Hobson Pledge are now like racking up and saying fear factor, because they've used all the tactics that we've seen around the world, fear factor, Māori are gonna, I don't know, kill them in their beds, take their land back and do all these sorts of things. And then what we're now seeing is, in reaction to Māori coming together, again, in a position that no one expected to be in 2024, Hobson's Pledge now doing an appeal for more funding. We need to fight these Māoris. We need to take it to, and it's just like, wow, really? So we've got climate change, climate crisis. We've got, genocide and all sorts of issues going on in the world. We've got homelessness, heightened poverty here in Aotearoa. But hey, let's just spend the rest of our political tenure and time fighting over matters that, should be improving, not disapproving.
Could you help me out with one other part of the King's speech? And I'm paraphrasing, sorry, I should have had the quote up for you, but he said something along the lines of, it's not about the principles in the treaty, it's about the words in the treaty. Some are taking that to him having said there are no principles of the treaty, yet other people, I forget her name, sorry, but I had a Waitangi lawyer on before Christmas as well, saying that the principles of the treaty have been laid out for the past 30 or 40 years pretty clearly. And I think for some, because there's some unclearness there, it's causing some confusion and it's also giving a point for the, let's say, opposing side, quote unquote, to push back. Like, the King says there's no principles. What do you mean? Let's make some. Can you flesh out that at all for us?
Yeah, I think, look, in my view, so Te Tiriti is Te Tiriti. It's not up for rewriting. Over the years, people have summed it into principles to help decision making, to help apply, to soften the blows of what really rangatiratanga, kawanatanga, and so, I think 1, 2, and 3 articles, but what we have, and each time the principles have been rewritten to help people apply them, it's been watered down, softened down. So Te Tiriti is Te Tiriti. It doesn't need to be rewritten. It's fabulous as it is. It suits us all of us. And the principles and things that have been played around with, every now and then governments come in and they insist on it. We don't understand it. I'm sorry. Even though we signed in 1840, we need to allow. And so every now and then people tinker with it. But what, not to the extent that David and his shareholders are trying to do. Now what we sort of see is watering it down so much that, again, he's moving it to the whole thing that we are all New Zealanders, that there were no iwi before Kiwi, and that argument. And it is a redundant, benign argument. And we risk getting into discussion of the prescription of principles versus the protection, in fact, of what Te Tiriti was about. And Tiriti guaranteed, the rights and interests of tangata whenua, acknowledged that we existed. And we weren't a country, a nation we weren't a people who were taken over and, I guess, taken over by some great big marauding war, and we surrendered. We were actually a people that invited the crown to look after its people who were living here and to live in harmony. And I think we'll always take that view, is that we're not a country or Indigenous people that won or lost by conquest. Our ancestors were extremely visionary. We were the last of the nations to be colonized. They were moving around the world and already knew the peril of colonization. Even Queen Victoria didn't want what happened to go on. And so this was a protection mechanism after Wakaputanga to protect the Indigenous people. But most importantly, we were the major population. It was actually to tell, hey, you've got all these people coming to move here. Look, they're misbehaving. Look after them. So, I think the essence of it has changed as the force dynamics of population for one has grown and the other forcibly declined.
I spent part of the time off. Every now and again, my partner and I finally finished watching the series Vikings. Vikings is a History Channel thing, and it's pretty cool. Ragnar Lothbrok was the guy who started it all. It goes through the series. It's like 120 episodes, and we finally got to the last one. And I meant to, when I saw it, I meant to grab it so I could show it tonight, and I've forgotten. But I'll paraphrase the very last episode. So the final episode, the Vikings have made it to North America, and they're only in there for like the last 2 episodes. And some bad stuff goes down, and one of the Vikings does something bad, and then the other Vikings kind of have to come to the Indigenous people in North America and sort of apologize and figure it out. And the Indigenous settlers there say something like, when we said you're welcome, that doesn't mean you can own the land. It means you're welcome to be a part of our land. And I know it's not exactly the same, but it was ironic that I watched that in the weekend just as the Hui was going on. And it just, like, I'm not trying to draw a parallel saying that's what the treaty is and that's what we are, but it's interesting just to think about. It gave me a mindset of all those years ago, 200 plus years ago, 300. That was supposedly in the year 1000 sort of thing. What the new group coming in expected and did versus what the people who were there possibly said and tried to communicate to them.
That's right. Except, you know what? There was a perfect example that the articles under Te Tiriti gave each party both rights and responsibilities and invested in each with the authority to act. And had they not done that and acted and intended to go well until natural development was interfered by property developers and land developers. Does it ring familiar? Is it similar shareholders that we see now trying to silence and reduce tangata whenua's value? But I think, again, it is essentially about the Crown managing its own people, Article 2 about rangatiratanga and Article 3 about all citizens and residents of Aotearoa. And I think what we sort of see is a suggestion that the treaty is not fit for purpose. And because David and his shareholders appeal to people who are neither involved in tangata whenua, probably never want to be, again, generalising, and have not grown up familiar with Te Tiriti or tangata whenua's intents, I think that it's given, again, this deliberate view that Māori are getting privileged treatment more than anyone else. And you hear it in David's language. The trouble is that, again, his script would work in a larger populated nation. It's not working in Aotearoa. And I think I'm at Ratana and was there today and there for the next 2 days, and the Kīngitanga and the discussions, and all today, the discussions were about what happened at the Kingi's call, Toi Tuti Tiriti. And the reminder, and I really love this, is that through all of this, we must hold on to the things that unite us, and the fact that, generally speaking, I know they're in a coalition government, but they were not a widely supported party, and neither are their views. And I keep saying this, the Prime Minister's, if he wants to be more than a one-term Prime Minister, he's going to have to figure out this issue that he's having. So in the meantime, we're all really motivated by hanging on to things that we can do really beautifully here in Aotearoa.
You said it wouldn't work in a larger country. It's funny, because I actually think it shouldn't work anywhere, because I did this thing over the holiday period. I saw something come out and I put out a kind of sarcastic tweet that said something like, thank goodness we have this new government that's going to sort everything out. Finally, rural people won't get special entrance to the medical schools because there's a rural admission. They never talk about that, but they talk about Māori admission to a medical school. And I just heard Mr. Seymour again today talking about, you can't say this group of people based on race all want the same thing. And I thought, but we do that with everything else. Aucklanders want You know, we group all 1.5 million people together because we're saying for the betterment of this group of people, whether every single one of them agree or not. So it's this thing that I keep coming back to with David Seymour, is that it comes off as race baiting or racist is because the only thing he's concerned about is race. He doesn't want to see the rural exemption taken away. He'll be happy to say people of Epsom want. Well, you can't say people of Epsom because they're all individuals, but he'll happily say that, but he won't say all Māori want. You know, so it's, and so that when I say putting a logical brain to it, I don't think it should work anywhere.
But, you know, if you have a listen to a lot of their language, and I mean, yeah, we're so used to it, is that, you know, this dialogue of elitism. Oh my God, we've got people who represent a shareholding party, a party of shareholders who are 2%ers who own more than 50% of the wealth, talking to us about elitism. Do they hear themselves? And the absolute hypocrisy of what they're trying to do, which, and again, the language used, the elite, that is all deliberate. It is on cue. And I think the more we understand the way that they vilify Māori, demonise us who dare to want to aspire to go from survivance to thrivance, who dare hold on to our seats of partnership. But the language and the way that his political stances have gone are truly, again, I can't work out. I get what they're protecting. I get the capitalism, and I get the joys that they've had, that they're protected, and don't want status quo change in any way or form, particularly economically, because this is a party of economics. But the way that they talk about our elitism and stuff like that, it's just like absolutely hypocrisy. But I guess the other side of it is that at the kaupapa in the weekend, and I wish everyone, like I could not be more sincere, I wish everyone could have seen the rangatahi that were there and their views, and they're just not getting slowed down or held back by any of those sentiments. So these are, I think it's a really awesome part of our nationhood going on at the moment. Like, what do we truly represent? And, you know, we've probably had it really beautiful. Renaissance, all the fiscal envelope stuff that went on from Māori here, the assemblies of Aotearoa and stuff. But now our rangatahi have to actually fight for their rangatiratanga and what they want Aotearoa to be. And it's bloody exciting, I tell you, Pat. It's bloody exciting.
Hey, mate, two more quick questions. The first one is really just a reaction. Dale Takatimu, I think it is, at the weekend, talked about, quote, this white supremacist underpinned government, end quote, direct quote. That's obviously something that's said that's risen up and got a few heckles up. Do you agree with that statement? How do we classify the government? How do we see them as being white supremacist underpinned? Because that sounds like one step away from they are white supremacist. It's a bit like talking about the elite Māori. That's like Hitler talked about the elite Jews. It's like they're using the same playbook. So that's what I hear when I hear underpinned, as opposed to actually being. How do you react when you hear her saying this white supremacist underpinned government?
Well, okay, let's just look at this in a non-emotive way. We have a government that's come in that wants to undo policy and systems that were designed by a tribunal and by multiple medical experts that would help Māori to close the gap of why they're dying 7 to 10 years earlier than non. We have a government. Okay, so that's about well-being. We have a government that knows that Māori die more from cancer, lung cancer, and they're wanting to increase smoking, particularly that's aimed at initiatives towards Māori. We have a government that wants to rid the country or relegate our reo. So there we have our lives, our well-being are at threat, our language is at threat. We have a government that has now decided that our very existence, the wakapapa that makes up Te Tiriti, that our wakapapa doesn't matter. We didn't exist before colonisation. If that is not examples of the tools of white supremacism, and then again, take it away, just pretend we're somewhere else. If you saw 3 or 4 of those traits, what would you call them?
Yeah.
Because they are not non-extreme. They are extreme efforts to wipe away the role, the language, the well-being the ability and the rights for the Indigenous peoples of this land, nowhere else, to be self-determining. Those are all things, sadly, that we've seen white supremacists do across the world, that we've seen happen to Indigenous peoples. And the worst thing is that often those white supremacists are driven by shareholder type initiatives. So they have an economic capitalist imperative. So 1 + 1 + 1 + 1. And so again, I know I saw some of the reaction in the media, and to be really honest, counteract it. Like, take away that we're not talking about here. Just put that on a sheet of paper, write it up, send it out to somebody else, and tell us, what do you think is the culture or the habits or the traits of those people who are applying that onto the Indigenous peoples? If that's not white supremacy at its absolute, best, then what is it? Because it's not mild. And what's even worse is that everything anti-Māori has been put into the 100-day. So we're not even given the right to be consulted, the existence of our very, our existing iwi leaderships to be involved. It's just get out of my way, Māori. You are in the way of progress, whether it's our environmental views, our cultural views, our real views, just get our health views. So I'm sorry, I totally support what she said. There is no way to soften the truth.
It's a great place to finish off, but before we just head off, Spider Hoof, want to say kia ora, Deb, love your mahi,
I love
supporting
Spider
you,
Hoof.
fighting the good fight against this government who are only in it for their donors. So thanks for the super chat,
shareholders. Thank you. I need to change. I follow Spider Hoof, and I love that word donors. I might have to change my terminology. I've been calling that party shareholders for a while. I'm going to stick to it, because the minute we start realizing they're not made up of unionists, they're not made of Māori advocates, they're not there for marginalised peoples, for takatapui, for disabled, they're actually there for the shareholders. Let's not call them anything else. And what is their primary purpose of being together? To maximise their profits.
Yeah.
That's their only goal in life.
Profit for this year. It's a really good term. Every time one of you guys comes on, same with Kieran, when Kieran McAnulty came on, Spider Hoof's always like, let me help you with your socials. So she'll, I know from, just reach out, she'll be there. We'll all be there, Deb. That's I guess part of the thing. We'll all be there if you guys want.
Private message me. I'll send you actually the staff's details. We've got one now.
Yeah.
We're like a real party. We've got
you're at Ratana. Last thing, Ratana and Waitangi Day. What do we expect?
So you're the first to hear this. So, and the rest of the media.
That means it's a world exclusive. That means this is a world exclusive.
Yeah, it's exclusive. So the rest of the media today, advisory tomorrow morning. So for the first time ever, Te Pati Māori is going on to Ratana tomorrow with the Kīngitanga. We are not going on with the other opposition parties, and we will be. And I am Ratana, so I've been there all day today supporting the kōrero. And that is because it's more important for us to be there supporting our rangatira and our movements, our Māori movements, our mana Māori motuhake movements, and than it is to be political. And so we're really humbled and excited to be arriving 3:00 tomorrow and going on with the Kīngitanga. I have no idea what Rawiri is going to say, but it's going to be great. And then we'll be there to tautoko again as Moerehu, as Ratana, Rawiri and I and the MPs will all be there on the 24th to listen to what is going to be said to the government. So in this kaupapa, it's really important that for us, Rawiri and I and Te Pati Māori have always believed that our role is not to try and be the lead of all things, and actually to fit in with the very movements. And I will say one other thing that I really loved before I go is that we had the Reverend, I think he was a Reverend from the Anglican Church. He was a tamahiri, and all of our speakers and their opening speakers spoke about the fight and the cause in Gaza, and the importance for us as Indigenous peoples to recognise how revolting things get when we don't put in extremists and their revolting behaviour to Indigenous peoples. I'm not comparing. All I'm saying is that there is a lot going on in the world for Indigenous peoples and Indigenous rights. And I think it was really awesome to hear our leaderships over the last few days heighten that as well. And it's something we haven't heard from the government. We haven't seen enough for the protection of others that are enduring violence. And so, yeah, I'm really proud to be amongst that company, really proud to be going on to Ratana. Well, I'll be at Ratana, but I'm proud that our party is going on with them at 3 o'clock tomorrow. When we go to Waitangi, it is highly likely that we will go on differently there too. Again, because our priority is to support the movements. Our priority isn't for us to be front row, front headlines.
Okay. It's exciting. Just on the Israel Gaza thing, I've already been in touch with someone who was at The Hague for the South African trial. I'm in touch with someone who's a journalist comedian out of Egypt. And what I'm determined to do, I'm telling everybody this, and you can know this as well, is I'm determined to not allow that become back page news like Ukraine did. Right? Like Ukraine's still happening today, but it's kind of become back page news. So I'm going to keep pushing that, and I'm determined to. So I agree. I agree wholeheartedly.
Thank you. I think it's really important, Whānau, that I know things are tough for us at the moment, but in spite of all of that, nothing for us is as tough as what we see going over there.
Yeah.
And we are human bound. We are human bound to do everything we can to continue to share and to fight. And I feel really bad the last couple of days we've been at kaupapa. I haven't had my eye over things, but you know what's really great is that I feel bad.
Yeah.
I know that it's my responsibility to continue to share and speak on those stories. So kia kaha whānau, but please don't forget to look after those that are enduring some of the worst deliberate violence and genocide we've ever seen.
Yeah. And Deb, thanks so much for joining us. I could wrap up the show now. If I have any technical glitches after you get off, I don't care. I'll just wrap the show. This show's been worth it just for the conversation. So that's been amazing. And obviously everyone in the chat's loving it. And we just feel so blessed to have you here on number one for 2024.
I know, really proud. The mahi do keep going, guys, and look forward to hearing from. We'll get Barbie in here one day soon. That will, cool. Okay.
We'll be in touch.
Whānau.